Hey Lauren, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Hi,
Doing
Lauren.
well. I like
Hi,
I like
everyone.
your I like your neon behind you. I wish it was lit up. Too
You
early,
don't want
right?
any of that. It's very bright.
Yeah, maybe too much.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, we'll have a great conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much, Lauren. Super excited. I just realized that we're the first of the day. So super excited to really kick this off. It's been a long time coming. So thank you so much for joining us. I think before we dive into it, would love to bring all of the audience up to speed a little bit about your role. And then if you can dive a little bit into the growth that you've seen over the years, because you've been at Square for quite some time now, right? So would love to hear a little bit about what you are touching right now as far as your responsibilities and then some of the growth that you've seen.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today. And yeah, so I run marketing and comms at Square. I've been at Square for 4 years and we have seen a lot of growth. I'll start by saying, my job at Square is really to communicate to our customers around our products and solutions so that they understand all the things that we have to offer them. And we've grown a lot over the last 4 years. We're going internationally, we're growing and meeting the needs of larger customers. And I would say last year in particular was a really incredible year for us. I think we took a lot of really strategic bets to show up for our customers and surface solutions that we thought would be critical to help them adapt during the pandemic. And it was an investment that paid off really well for us because we were helping them make the pivot to get online, to offer curbside pickup and delivery, to offer payment through QR codes, to do contactless payments. And we wanted to make sure that we created a lot of awareness around those tools and solutions. And we saw people that normally take around 3 years to make that sort of like tech forward adjustment in their business, do it in a matter of 3 weeks. So just a really incredible acceleration of businesses adopting more solutions and technology to help them start, run, and grow.
That's huge. I mean, we were there, right? Like everything started to go. I mean, even years before last year, things started to go cashless for sure. And then you start to see like what a huge need. Was that a puppy in your background? I
Yes.
love that.
I mean, it's just uncanny every time I'm on some type of live webinar that my dogs bark and someone rings the doorbell. So sorry, everybody.
No, I love that. It's like puppy bombs and baby bombs. I'm here for like always. But yeah, so we've seen, definitely a need in the market for that for sure. I'm curious to know, like, it was definitely a challenging 2020, but such an opportunity. What other challenges have you guys seen? And I mean, I like to spin it on its head and think about it as an opportunity because this is essentially more than likely where the future is going when it comes to businesses of all shapes and sizes. What are some of those that you're seeing right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I think initially during the pandemic, for businesses that were shut down, the initial challenge was really around adapting, but also just, I think we thought about how can we provide relief to our customers. So we knew that, being shut down would really hurt a lot of these businesses. Cash flow is probably their biggest struggle overall. And so some of the things that we did initially were refund some of their SaaS fees and just try to think of ways that we could provide relief. We changed a lot of elements in our roadmap in 2020 to accommodate what we were seeing in terms of like needs from our customers. And another example is we started to offer PPP loans, which were being offered through the government, but making it easy for our customers to access PPP loans through our platform. And then I would say just in general for business owners, like the challenges are capital and cash flow management. And so those are areas that Square has been invested in for a long time. And I would say like lots of exciting movement in that area for us this year as we really start to forge into our banking capabilities and solutions. And I would say like everything at Square, our goal is really to make things easier for our customers, to put everything all in one place, to just take friction out of the system. That was really the ethos of how the company was started. And so it's really about removing barriers. So if you're running your business on Square, you can now do business banking with Square, and it just makes it easier for you to be able to see everything all in one place. you get access to your money really instantly if you need to use that money for business expenses. And so I think those are the things that we see are really challenging, but also but business owners are really busy. They wear multiple hats. They start their business for one reason, but then they end up becoming the CEO, the CFO, the chief legal officer, and there's so many things that they had to contend with. And so we're always focused on how do we kind of just give them time back in their day so that they can spend time with their families and so they can get back to doing the things that they love about their passion and craft.
I love that you say it like that, because I feel like it, one, also comes across in your sort of like design and packaging and everything that you guys put out there from a visual standpoint. I was thinking about it earlier and I was like, you're really democratizing financial savviness, I want to say, and like empowering individuals, again, all sizes, to really take control of their businesses in their respective ways. So, I mean, that's awesome. Love to hear that. I want to dive a little bit more into research. So there has to be a huge function of research in the work that you do. I'm sure that there might have even been new insights from last year that you guys are now considering moving forward and thinking about behaviors and things like that. Curious to know what kinds of research matters the most to you right now. What does that research process look like for you and your teams? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I love this question. I think not only because my background is really in research and insights, but also because at Square, I think we're always putting that customer lens on everything that we do. And it's something that I love about the company, but that, to your point, became more important than ever in the last year. And so one of the things that we introduced at the start of the pandemic was just doing a monthly pulse check-in with our customers. In the very start of the pandemic, we wanted to just gauge where they were at and how they were feeling. And I think what we try to do is make sure that our tone and our messaging is reflective of where they're at. And so early on, it became critical for us to do that because different parts of the country were in really different stages of shutdowns and lockdowns. And we wanted to make sure that we were being respectful and acknowledging that, but also not being too alarmist in some of our earliest messages to our customers. And then I would say over the summer, there's been, I would say prior to sort of this new kind of uptick in the Delta variant, there was a lot of excitement about things going back to normal. And we checked in with our customers again, and I think that they were cautiously optimistic. And so while I think everyone as consumers was feeling really excited to sort of get back to normalcy, I think a lot of our customers were still feeling concerned, around just what the path forward would look like for them. And so we do constant check-ins with customers. We've also are always evolving our messaging strategy, our design systems. And so we also check in with our customers to make sure that those new design systems and those messages are resonating with them. They understand what we're trying to talk about. And then I would say, we also kind of keep a pulse of customer perceptions for Square, for our competitors, and especially as we start to enter new markets, we really want to make sure that we understand some of the perceptions, the cultural nuances there. And so there's quite a bit of ongoing brand tracking, customer satisfaction surveys, and just constant ear to the ground in terms of what our customers are feeling and thinking.
Got it. Yeah. Again, makes a lot of sense. So exciting to see brands that are growing so rapidly still be able to have direct, almost pretty direct, conversations or interactions with their audiences and be so quick in adjusting based on what they're seeing in the market too. So, that's just awesome to hear. It leads me to think a little bit more about, given that interaction with customers, influencers who are at times, I'm sure that if you've worked with them, they might have been customers themselves. I'm curious to know what is the role of influencers and how have you guys worked with them? Have they been sort of a more upper funnel tactic for you, maybe more bottom of the funnel? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk about this. I would say one of the things that we know from all the insights that we've collected from our customers is that one of the things that customers are looking for is to hear from other people that are in their shoes, to show other business owners in their category, people that they respect and admire. So I would say in a lot of ways, micro influencers have always been a part of our strategy. We have a very long history of marketing at Square, of sharing customer stories and really allowing our customers to explain how they leverage Square solutions to really support their business needs. And so I would say that's kind of always been core to what we do, but we've been experimenting with a lot of new influencer strategies as well. But I would say the thing for us is primarily thinking about influencers at the vertical level. So if you're a restaurant owner, then we want to work with influencers in the restaurant space. We have a beauty campaign running right now. It's actually our first time that we've ever run a campaign that's really actively communicating directly with just the beauty segment. And so that is an area where we know influencers play a really pivotal role for a lot of people in that sector. And so we're leveraging influencers there too. Obviously, you can't talk about influencers without talking about TikTok. And so we've definitely been experimenting with influencer strategies on TikTok too, and really just using TikTok influencers who are also business owners and trying to see what really sticks there. And then in terms of your question of where I see influencers falling, I think it's in the funnel. I would say probably in two ways. I think it's upper funnel for sure. I view influencers as an opportunity for us to reach customers who may not be seeing some of our other messaging. Would say secondly, it's really a mid-funnel tactic. And so we know that our customers really trust other business owners. And so I think that our influencer strategy plays a key role in just driving further consideration. So somebody may have heard of Square, heard about our solutions. And I think hearing from somebody that you respect and admire in the same category as you is a great way to kind of get them one step further to thinking about adopting Square solutions for their business.
Got it. I mean, speaking our language, we love that. I love to hear that other brands out there that are sharing that same sentiment. People trust people when it comes to influencers. I don't think that they're going anywhere. The market's only becoming, even bigger in the influencer world. So good to know that you guys have a strategy for them, sort of, or a place for them in various different strategies that you guys are taking on. You mentioned TikTok, of course. It makes me think about creative, and I'm a little bit, so we can talk about this in a couple of ways. I'm curious to know, like, creative when it comes to your work with influencers, what does that look like? And is that process maybe different from some of the other marketing tactics that you guys have in play?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I would say definitely the creative strategy for working with influencers is much different than our creative strategy when we're kind of putting out a really polished asset that is going to go on to other media channels. And I think ideally, when it comes to influencers, we want them to feel authentic. And so I would say we're much more hands-off in that process, right? And so we feel like, these influencers are used to talking to their audience. And so we want them to talk to their audience in the way that they usually talk to their audience. And then we're really just giving them a couple of guidelines. And I think we also, you asked this question earlier, but we're really looking for influencers that are using our products and solutions. So it should just be really easy. We have our community groups at Square, and we have customers who we call super sellers. And they're basically just our most loyal customers. They love talking about Square. They have a big following. And so for them, it's really just most of the time, they're just doing this organically, being influencers for us, which is amazing. And so I would say it's definitely a different creative process. And it's still nascent for us, if I'm being honest. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to leverage influencers more going forward in our strategy. I think we plan to. And so we're trying new things and we're seeing what works, and we're working on measurement and all of the things that I think can make that type of strategy different than some of your other marketing tactics.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, hear that. Is it easier? Has it changed at all, the creative process, knowing that I'm assuming you're working remote for most of the teams. I always envision innovative companies like yours, there's a whiteboard, we have Zoom meetings, everyone's ideas to the wall, but what has that process been like? What does it look like for you across your teams?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this has probably been an area that I'm most proud of our team for just being able to make this adjustment. And so early on, I think we're sort of scratching our head, how are we going to produce new creative assets remotely. And I would say, luckily, there's just amazing technology that allows us to do that. And so we're able to literally observe what's happening on a video shoot from behind our computer screens, and just giving everybody the tools to be able to edit and make a lot of these changes that used to happen inside our office, to be able to do that at home. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't hard. I think just even thinking about travel restrictions for us, a big focus for this year has been global expansion. And so, whenever we're going to a new market, we want to shoot assets in that market. We really want to be authentic. And that has been, I think, just really extra challenging, because a lot of times our teams can't travel there. There's all kinds of restrictions about what can even be happening and what's going on. And so for sure, I think we have had our fair share of challenges, but I would say overall, like, I think the team's been incredibly nimble and flexible. And I think it's kind of introduced a new way of working for all of us that I think honestly is just really incredible. And I think 10 years ago would not have been possible.
Yeah, totally agreed. It's like, even in hiring people on the team, it's like, can you be flexible? Can you change if a pandemic happens, for example, and, pivot? So that's good to hear you guys are thriving in that way. Let's shift it a little bit more and talk about some of the social work or the social good initiatives that you guys have had in place, some of the more cause-related stuff that you guys have done over the years. I know specifically you've done stuff in the last year in support of multicultural communities. Can you dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I'll start by saying that, we see just tons of diversity in our platform and the kinds of businesses and customers that we serve. And so first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're representing that diversity in every asset and everything that we do. And so that's kind of like a table stakes thing for us. And then I would say in terms of programs specifically, we've actually done a lot in this area, and we don't talk about it very often, but in 2020, we announced that as a company, we'd be investing $100 million to support minority and underserved communities. We've recently announced where the final $10 million of that $100 million allocation would go, and is going into a fund for an Entrepreneurs of Color fund. And then I would say, in addition to just some of those investment areas, we also really go back to I think our long-standing history of storytelling through short films and podcasts and other formats. And so last year we came out with a new short film series called Black Owned, and it was really films that were highlighting Black business owners and just the role that they play in their communities. Everyone should check it out. I absolutely love these stories. They're so incredible. And then this past year, just recently, we released another short film series called Asian Love Letters, where we sort of detailed followed around a couple Asian business owners in the New York area, and really talked about just the impact of the pandemic on them, and also the role that their cultural and heritage plays in driving their overall business strategy. I think I could go on and on. There's a lot in this area. The final thing I'll say is that, we're experimenting still with some things. So in Atlanta and Chicago this year, we had a campaign that was called The Future is Built Here, where we showcased Black business owners in those areas through some out-of-home executions, where we also included QR codes so that people that were passing by some of those out-of-home units could have a chance to actually shop and support those businesses in their community. And I think that was a really amazing moment for the businesses that we highlight, and actually is helping kind of take some of these business owners in their communities and really elevate their status so that they're becoming more influential in their own right within their own communities.
That's just awesome. Again, being one of the many, or I want to say few who have done it early, many now who have really leaned into initiatives like that in a way that's super authentic to the brand, and, continues to maintain and be relevant. Shifting a little bit into, I know we talked a little bit about your digital media mix, but then you also just touched a little bit about some of the out-of-home efforts that you guys have been doing. How has your overall media mix changed in the last year, we can say, maybe longer, because maybe there's a lot to talk about, but just knowing the way that people are consuming, brands and advertisements, how has that changed overall?
Yeah. So this is an interesting question. And I would say there's there's a lot of factors, I think, that influence our media strategy over the past, I want to say like 14 or 15 months. I would say number one, we always want to be where consumers are spending time. And so that's kind of just like every marketer's rule of thumb. The additional element I think that we really had to consider during the pandemic was just flexibility. And so, we've always been very heavy in a lot of digital channels. I would say probably in 2020, we started to lean into some more traditional channels, thinking about out of home and television a little bit more, which is something we hadn't done historically. During the pandemic, we definitely wanted the flexibility. I don't think we've ever any brands, not just Square, had to move faster than we did during COVID. And I always say, like, we had to move at the speed of culture, which is really hard to do. And so when you're doing that, I think we just needed more flexibility than we normally do. And then I would also think everybody was home, everybody was sort of consuming digital content. And so we really heavied up in those areas. As people are starting to get back out again is when we start to think about like some out of home and some other more traditional channels and executions. I think we kind of keep thinking about experiential and when do we start to do some in-person activations. We were thinking that was going to be soon. Now we're thinking that's probably going to be a little bit later. And so I would say the name of the game in the last year and a half has been just flexibility. So having channels that are flexible. So I think pivoting towards places where people are, and then trying to ensure as much as possible that we have the flexibility to move things around as needed, given just the constant change that was happening, felt like every week back in early 2020.
I know. I feel like I think we did a couple of these last year, and the question always was like, how far in advance are you planning some of your marketing tactics? Like, is it a year? Is it 6 months? Is it weeks? Some were planning days in advance. Has that changed as far as like how far you guys are looking into the future? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, I would say we're in a more normal rhythm than we were in 2020, which felt like everything was happening like on a 10x speed. And I think it was really like we had to get things out in the moment that we were trying to communicate around, knowing that that moment could change really quickly. So that was kind of a super intense period of time for us where we replanned more times in 2020 than I think ever I have in my entire career. So this year, I think we've kind of resumed a more normal cadence, but I would say we're still like, we probably planned 6 months out at maximum. I think we definitely think about the long-term horizon, but I would just say like things move really fast. Our entire industry is moving really fast. And so I feel really good about what's coming in the next 6 months. And the 6 months after that, I feel like I have 80% confident about what we'll do, but I also like that we give ourselves a little bit of room to be flexible there.
Awesome. Love to hear that. Diving into a little bit more about your different programs. So I know you're primarily focused on your merchant business. So thinking about B2B versus B2C tactics that, for example, Cash App may employ a little bit more. How do those differ? And do any strategies ever overlap in like really positive ways or in any way at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would say, Cash App and Square, we're always looking for places where there is that overlap between our businesses. And I think that there will continue to be more of those in the future. But in terms of your question around B2C versus B2B tactics, I'll say, I think Square falls somewhere in the middle. And so I've kind of come from both traditional B2B and consumer backgrounds. And I think when you think about Square's business, we've got some really large businesses. We're working with stadiums and arenas. And I would say those are much more like enterprise level businesses. We have some really large like restaurants and retailers that are on our platform. And then we also have some smaller merchants that are in our platform. And so I think for us, when we're thinking about creating broad awareness, we're using consumer tactics by and large to really reach our customers. Number one, every business owner is also a person. And we've also done a lot of testing. And what we found is that when our ads are showing up in more like general entertainment and sports content versus like very specifically targeted business content, that they tend to do a little bit better. And so where we want to be broad, we're definitely operating much like a consumer brand in the places that we show up. I think as we start to get a little bit more targeted and focused, that's where you start to see some of our more traditional B2B tactics. So where we're in trade publications or showing up in trade shows, or when we're talking to really large businesses, we're using, case studies and a lot of comm strategies to really create the narratives there that we're trying to reinforce within that segment. So it does, I would say, like, we really run the gamut on these things, but I think one of the things that surprises people the most is that even though, we're serving all of these business owners, a lot of our marketing tactics are actually much more similar to consumer marketing tactics.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And I know that there's brands that are kind of navigating strategies in that way that find a lot of value in that. So thanks for sharing that. Before we get into some questions, I encourage you guys to continue asking some of those questions. One that popped up was, where is that series? Where can we find the series that you mentioned? That you had a couple that you mentioned that you've been doing.
They're all on our website. So I will find the exact URL, but if you just go to squareup.com and you can search for Black owned, and you'll find all of those series there. And they're also all on YouTube.
Awesome.
So it's Black owned and Asian love letters. Those are the names of the series.
Perfect. Another question I have is, we talked about different tactics, different marketing tactics. At the end of the day, this year, what do you think success looks like for you? And does it maybe look a little bit different than what it did last year? Or what are you thinking as far as some of those success metrics?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think success for us is pretty consistent. Our goal is to really educate customers, create awareness and demand for Square's products and solutions. And so at the end of the day, I think especially as we continue to march forward with global expansion and enter new markets, we are sometimes a late entry in some of those markets with very low awareness. So we look to see, like, are we generating more awareness? I would say we also have had work to do in some of our existing and sort of more mature markets in terms of shifting the perception of Square and the kinds of businesses that we serve and the solutions that we have. And then I would say primarily, we're looking at, are we bringing customers in, and are those customers more valuable than the customers that we've brought in the past? And that's sort of the main metric of success for us. But I think at the end of the day, like, our strategy is all around creating more awareness, to create more demand, to really educate the market on all the ways that we can support those customers. Because if they come in with a better understanding of everything that we offer as part of our ecosystem, then they are more valuable to us. They are also more likely to attach to multiple products within our full suite of solutions.
Got it. That makes sense. Some are flying in already. Someone's asking, what prior career experiences have shaped your ability to thrive in your current role at Square, or even previous roles? Do you have any prior career experiences that have helped shaped you where you are today?
Well, I would say yes. I think all of them shape where I am today, but I would say number one, like, I started off in research and insights. And so my mindset is always sort of starting with the customer and what do we understand and how are we connecting with them. I'm also like very comfortable and love the data side of marketing. And I think for being at Square, that's obviously been really impactful. At the end of the day, like, we're here to drive business results, and understanding how strategy ties to these business results is something that I think has served me well. And then I would say, I was at Yahoo for 6 years before I went to Square. And when I was at Yahoo, we had a lot of changes during that time. It was an amazing experience, but tons of leadership changes, constant state of change, I would say, for 6 years straight. And so I think that probably just positioned me well to be flexible, adapting, and just like being able to pivot quickly without getting too worked up about it. And so I would say probably it's like a combination of all of those things.
I love that. It's like encouraging for folks out there who are like, is the world, or is what I did before actually going to translate in some way? Totally agree with you. I've had roles in the past, just a few that I feel like have definitely led me to a place to be, again, adaptable, be able to pivot, be able to, step up and not be so afraid to ask questions and things like that. So I love to hear that. Someone else is asking, can you share a bit more on how your role or approach, I suppose, to marketing is changing in relation to your pipeline and revenue?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably the biggest thing there is I think we're attracting much more larger merchants and customers. And so that does change both our strategy. I think when Square first started, we didn't even have a sales team, and we still see that. I mean, I think the idea behind Square is that it's easy. It's really easy to use and get started. I always say, I one time went to my son's second grade class and did a presentation on what I do at my job, which included letting them all like kind of create their own business and actually go into our point of sale system and like create inventory items. And so it really is that easy. And so I think, by nature, Square started like very simple, easy, and allowing businesses to just onboard without having to talk to someone in sales. I would say I think we've gotten a lot more complex. We have more complex businesses coming in. And so it has changed the way that we market. We're doing more lead generation. We're doing a lot more like really, I think with comms and the narratives that we want to share, and really trying to shift that perception, attract larger businesses, which I think is kind of getting us more into that more traditional B2B marketing sort of enterprise kind of types of strategies.
Got it. Great answer. This one kind of goes hand in hand as well. The question is, what categories or industries do you see popping up as you grow your brand presences for businesses large and small? So I think they're talking about your clients or customers. What categories or industries do you see popping up?
Yeah, I mean, so the great thing about Square is that we really have such a wide swath of industries already. And so we've got tons of retailers. We've got a lot of food and beverage customers as well. So that's everything from full service restaurants to QSRs to bars. I would say like some of the areas, I would say like professional services and beauty. We also have a lot of these customers too. And I think we're taking a more active approach to make sure that they understand all the ways that we can support them. And I think the other big change in our product strategy that changes how we market is that we really have invested heavily in our API capabilities. And so allowing larger customers to kind of take what they're already using and then also be able to leverage Square. And so that's another, I think, probably area where we'll start to work with much larger customers. So as I mentioned, like stadiums and arenas, we're a really great fit for a lot of those businesses. And they're working through a bunch of different APIs. So we'll continue to sort of, I think, see more of that. And then the final one is probably healthcare. I think that's another one that is a more like emerging and up and coming category. Again, we have all of these already. So I always say at Square, like the biggest challenge is kind of focusing on which opportunity is the one that we want to focus on. And so I think healthcare is also a very untapped opportunity for us, and a vertical that we'll probably start to see more traction with in the future.
That's so funny. That answer is very similar to how we've been approaching, because a lot of clients are like, what kinds of clients you guys work with? And it's like, name a category. Everyone's been wanting influencers in some way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of fun in that way. And then speaking of beauty, yeah, all of my beauty services I pay through by way of Square. So just throwing it out there, actual customer.
Yeah. It helps with the customer insights when you're able to just like, go to your local town and see people using Square. And then you can just ask them like, how's it going? What do you like about it? What could be better? And so I feel like my family wants to kill me because I pretty much do that everywhere I go.
They're like, here she comes.
Yeah.
That's funny. Someone else is asking, how important is the data behind influencer marketing? Ooh, I love this. And do the metrics drive the messaging?
So that's a great question. And I mean, data is important in everything. And I would say it's an area that I think we have some work to do to have better metrics and better data so that we can get smarter about our influencer strategy. And so great question. I love the question. And I think the answer for us, honestly, is that we have some data and metrics, but I wish that we had more. And so that's something that we're focusing on for now so that we can get smarter and better about how we do that.
Got it. We'll have to chat then after this. Another question is more personal. How are you offlining this year? And what are you doing when you're not working to stay sharp, motivated, effective in your role?
That's a great question. So just last week, I was on vacation with my family at one of my favorite places, which you may laugh, all of you, even though I won't be able to see you, which is the Jersey Shore. So I love to go to the Jersey Shore. And I would say after like a very challenging year or so, last week I said like absolutely no work, no connection, not checking email, not checking in, not checking Slack. And so that was really great. And then I would say just when I'm not on vacation, you know, I do yoga, I exercise. I think like when you're working from home, getting out for walks as much as possible. I moved from the West Coast to the East Coast. And so it was a little bit challenging in the winter, just because it's much colder and the ability to get outside when it's snowing or freezing just requires more discipline. And so I always tried to get out and spend time outside. And I really tried to like leave my computer in my office at the end of the day so that I can really be present with my family.
Great advice. I know for me, I live in LA and there are times where I can't even experience summer. I feel like we get so comfortable. We're like, we're here, we're in our office, you know, we're being efficient. I have to force myself like I'm my own pet and take myself for a walk outside because it's like, girl's not going home. Her Peloton's here. Why does she need to go home?
Yeah, that's true. I have a phase in the winter where I was like, I haven't left the house in a long time. I go into my basement and I do the Peloton, then I shower, then I go to work, and then I go and I like make dinner with my family. And then by the time it's the end of the day, I'm like, I haven't gone outside today. And that's why I said, now I really make it a point of getting outside every single day, because I just think mentally it's really important to breathe fresh air and change your environment.
Tell us more. I love that. And totally agree. Another question on the influencer front too, a little bit. How do you balance macro influencer campaigns versus micro influencer campaigns? What roles do each of these types of play for your audiences? So I feel like you've touched on it a bit on how you work with both, but maybe dive into a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest that I think we've done much more extensive work with micro influencers. And so we haven't done a ton with macro influencers. Cash App does a lot with macro influencers, and they're very successful at doing that. And so I think it's tricky for us. I'm not against it. I think we just need to figure it out more. But I think because we're trying to be very like vertical specific, and we want to make sure that the people that we're using as influencers are credible business owners, it just lends itself to us using more micro influencers. But I think there's definitely room to expand to leveraging just bigger influencers even within those categories.
Yeah, totally agreed. Someone else is asking about co-branded partnerships. Have you explored co-branded partnerships, and are you open to them? If so, which brands would you consider? maybe what categories, if you don't want to give everything.
So we are definitely open to co-branded sponsorships. And I won't say which brands, but I will say how I would think about it, which is, I think that, you know, when we think about this area, and I would say it's another area that I think we'll start to do more with in the future. I think we're thinking about brands that have very similar interest to ours. And so we're looking for additional distribution and brands that have similar values, and where like that co-branded partnership will really be accretive to our brand position and message. And I'll give one example, which is, you know, during the pandemic, I reached out to Adobe and said, we should probably do some stuff together because we've got all of these business owners that are now making this pivot from physical selling to online selling. And you've got this huge network of designers who could probably really help. And so how do we start to pair those together? So we're sort of helping the small business community make this really important pivot online. And we're also giving freelancers who may be out of work an opportunity to get some new work. And so those are the, like, I would say, generally, when I'm thinking about co-branded sponsorships, I think we're looking for brands that have aligned interests with ours, where it's really complementary to what we're doing. And I think really the shared values piece has been key. The kinds of brand partnerships that don't work for us is when somebody comes in and it's really prescriptive and it's just basically a give us money. Like, we never do those, right? I think we're not really interested in the give us money and we'll promote your brand, because it just doesn't feel authentic to us and who we are.
100%. I love that. And the times where two brands that, I mean, from a consumer standpoint, if there's two brands that end up colliding in some way, it always, like, I mean, maybe it's from a marketer's perspective, but from a consumer perspective, I'm excited. Like, I am thrilled. Like, I thought you guys should meet. It's like getting your two best friends from like different categories. You may not know them as intimately, but you definitely consume them. And so to have them meet, I feel like is awesome.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, what do you focus on come holiday? Anything you can let us in on?
So it's interesting for Square, but the holiday time, so I would say, obviously, the holiday time is a really busy time for our customers. And so I would say, like, I think we're focused on making sure that our customers have everything that they need for the holiday time. But for a holiday, from our standpoint, we tend to be really quiet during that time. It's probably one of the quietest times for us because it's the busiest time for our customers. And so they're probably not in the mindset of adopting new solutions or making any changes. And so we definitely we do some thought leadership work to really just like share trends and promote ideas around the way that people will be shopping and the ways that small business owners can really be present for their customers. So a lot of what we do is really geared towards helping them get ready for the holidays versus holidays being a really important time for Square from a marketing standpoint, if that makes sense.
Totally makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's perfect. Someone's asking about LinkedIn, and do you view it as a key marketing channel? Do you think it's going to be an effective channel? Well, we can just leave there. What do you think about LinkedIn?
Yeah. So, I would say are always testing on LinkedIn, and I would say it's not probably one of our biggest channels, but as we get into lead generation and thinking about that, we've actually are seeing that we're having a lot of success there as we start to really like flex our muscle into paid lead gen. And I think the more LinkedIn supports small business owners, the more Square will be present in that channel. Like I said, like, we're going where our customers are. And so, I think LinkedIn has been doing a lot more in that area. And so we'll continue to test and experiment. And, we're extremely data driven. So if the data supports it, then we'll continue to invest there.
Love that. Only if it makes sense, y'all. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. Hey, Chris is interrupting again. It's fine.
That's what I do. I'm always here to ruin the party.
I'm telling you, they need like a smooth transition and then like elevator music or something.
Exactly. Yeah, make it like an award show playoff music.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lauren. This was great. Time flew by.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. It did fly by. Thank you so much. So enjoy the conversation. Thank you for having me.
Also, a quick question before you run, Lauren. So you guys made a $29 billion acquisition of Afterpay, which I found mind blowing. Like, whoa, what does that say about the buy now, pay later, like, way of doing things? Like, what is your company's statement on that? And if it's too early to say so, please, yeah, feel free to dismiss that.
I mean, it's a little early. I'll just say that we're very excited about this. I think that we see like customers really, really wanting to engage with buy now, pay later solutions. And so we just see this as a complement to everything else that we offer. So consumers want to pay that way and businesses want to be able to offer that to their consumers. So I think in a lot of ways, like, it's a perfect marriage of our brands to really be able to offer that. And so on the consumer side, Cash App is a great fit. for enabling customers and enabling more discovery of businesses through that platform. So we're super excited about that and what it unlocks for both our merchants and also our consumers.
Great. Well, congratulations on it. It's
Thank
funny.
you.
My wife always goes to me, why did you do that? Why did you defer the payments? And I said, because it makes me feel better. It's really the bottom line.
Because you can.
Yes, exactly. I want the money in my bank account that much longer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. It was an honor to have you on today. Tiffany, a great job as always.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, ladies. Well, that was a fantastic session. A big thank you to Lauren and Tiffany for joining us today. For our next session of the day, I'm going to be staying on stage to interview Rashi Rosenberg, our Executive Brand Director of Next Insurance. Welcome to the stage, Rashi. There you are. Hi, Rashi. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Doing well.